Hello, everybody. Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. The Raptors have a new and improved roster. They have new guys coming in, and Riker, the Raptors can make a lot of different lineups with these new players.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's going to be the most exciting thing to speculate. We're not entirely sure yet if Masai Ujiri is done this offseason in terms of shuffling around pieces, but assuming we're, sticking true with the current roster that we have,
The
current squad, then there is different options that we have in shuffling it up. So we'll first talk about starting lineup. What would be the most ideal?
The most ideal? We've seen a lot of different lineups out there. I don't know if we'll agree, but personally, I think you want to have the most talent in your starting lineup as you can. And it might be a hot take, but I think we should run Kyle Lowry, OG Anunoby, Kawhi Leonard, Siakam, and Jonas. That might be a wild take, but
is that in place? So you're saying OG is the shooting guard?
In my ideal starting lineup.
Your ideal starting lineup is Kyle, OG, Leonard,
yep.
Siakam, JV?
Yep.
Leonard, Siakam, JV. Wow, okay. Well, you'll have to explain that because I don't see where the offensive productivity is going to come from.
Well, OG obviously is a 3-and-D guy. He can hit the shots, and he's going to be improved. OG proved that he can get some buckets in the NBA. And Siakam, he's obviously he runs the floor every time. He's developed a handle last season, and it looks even better over the summer. We did a whole video on that. So I think offensively, and bringing in a top 3 player in the NBA, along with Kyle Lowry and Jonas, who are effective offensive players, I think offensively we would be fine. Maybe not as great as the consistency Danny Green might bring, but on the other end, OG Anunoby, Kawhi Leonard, and Pascal Siakam just guarding your wings. I don't know if anyone would score against us.
I kind of disagree. I think that OG is much too oversized to be, and not dexterity. What would be the word for it? He's not mobile enough to defend at the 2 position. Because if you're playing against a much smaller and quicker guard, then I think OG would actually end up being a liability.
To combat that point, do you remember when OG Anunoby locked down James Harden? And it was really OG's coming out party in his rookie season. Really defined the moment that he deserved a starting spot. Remember, he locked up the best offensive player in the NBA, maybe besides like Steph Curry or whatever. I think OG can definitely guard a shooting guard and do a phenomenal job at it.
I can see what you're saying. Okay. I get that point, but at the same time, all right, we'll switch over to offense. If you're now taking Kyle Lowry and Leonard, of course they're offensive creators. OG is the 3-and-D guy. Siakam certainly has yet to prove himself as being able to create any offense. He can run the fast break.
He can dribble now though. He was effectively dribbling, his passing was improved.
No, you're just assuming that based off of the
No,
one
he did
video
that last season.
He's only playing against scrubs. What?
No, he was dribbling and stuff last season. He was carrying the ball and all that last year.
And we saw that. Breath every time.
What?
And you held your breath every time because you weren't sure if he was going to turn over the ball or not. I don't think he's proven himself to be consistent enough to get a creative spot in the starting lineup. I think that if you have OG who's a stand-up guy, Siakam, who we don't really know what his offensive game is yet, and JV, who's not really creating for himself, then I think we're kind of limiting ourselves in towards like what would an offensive set look like? Like run me through 2 possessions.
Well, I see. I think our disagreement is on Siakam's creativity. I think this is our best 5 players, and I think given the chance of Siakam, maybe he could have a breakout year like Draymond Green had a couple years ago. Not necessarily an all-star, but a breakout season. But you want to have those guys, starting, getting the most minutes, and being productive if you want them to really step out. And I think OG and Siakam in the starting lineup gives us the highest ceiling.
It wouldn't even necessarily work in terms of what Nick Nurse wants, because his offensive style is fast-paced 3-point shooting, and OG is not the fastest guy, and you want your winger to be always up the court. JV is not a consistent 3-point shooter yet, and Siakam is less than 20% pretty much from the 3.
JV is Steph Curry.
He's the next Steph Curry. I know that, but listen, we got to think pragmatically here. We got to think rationally in terms of is JV yet at the level that we can truly have him into a 3-point shooting scheme? And I don't necessarily think that that's the case. He can hit down open shots, and he will shoot the three ball. I think in my ideal starting lineup, he's still there as well. But I think if you're really limiting yourself by both of your bigs technically aren't 3-point shooters.
That's fair. What's your starting lineup? Ideal starting lineup for the Raptors?
Ideal starting lineup, so Kyle Lowry, and then either Danny Green or DeLon.
Okay.
OG, Kawhi at the 4, and then JV.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that lineup, Danny Green would fit in better with the system because obviously he's a 3-point guy and all that. But if we were just to take Danny Green, because DeLon Wright doesn't really have that consistent 3-point shot yet. Yeah. And if he develops it, then maybe he's the guy we want in because he's a better creator than Danny Green. And they're both strong defenders. But essentially you replaced Danny Green with Siakam. Danny Green's a better shooter. But Siakam's a bit more bigger, mobile, and I'd argue Siakam's a better creator than Danny Green.
No, that is true. Siakam is a better creator than Danny Green. But at the same time, now you're playing a very big lineup. You're playing very, very big. And I think that obviously we can say that OG is very good at defense. We can say that Kawhi is good at defense. We can say that Siakam is good at defense. But there becomes the issue, and that's why small ball is so successful, is that there's some polarizing effect of having small in height players out on the floor that can take advantage of taller, longer players, and that they're able to just get around them faster. It's because they have, I don't know, the height of their dribbling is lower. It's just, I think that you're really hurting yourself in terms of going the other direction. And I mean, maybe it's yet to be seen. Do you think that realistically we would ever see the lineup that you propose? Do you think Nick Nurse would put that out and shift OG down to the 2?
I think Nick Nurse has, in all of his interviews, everything he said, he wants to be creative this season and try out different things during the regular season to see which works out best. So it wouldn't surprise me because I just not talking about lineups or whatever. Do you think our top 5 players going into next season is Lowry, OG, Kawhi, not in an order, but Lowry, OG, Kawhi, Siakam, and Jonas? Do you think they're our top 5 guys?
No. I think.
All right, who would you replace?
I think Fred's in the top 5.
Okay, that's fair. But obviously it'd be tough to start Fred at the 2.
Yeah, we're not going to start Fred. Fred needs to be on the bench.
Yeah. Fred's the captain of the bench mob. Yeah. Okay, you're correct on that. But outside of Fred.
Outside of Fred, so we're still fighting with. Okay, so you're saying then in the bench, Danny Green, Fred, DeLon, Ibaka, and CJ.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would agree. Yeah, that's the bet. Then none of those guys are better. Well, DeLon arguably is better than OG in terms of skill right now, but OG will become a better player, obviously.
Yeah. So, the reason I think this lineup is the best and has the highest ceiling because it puts our top 5 guys that can realistically start. Obviously, Fred is going to be the king of the bench mob. I think it just puts our top 5 guys out there, and it doesn't hold back a guy like Siakam or OG if they are brought to the bench.
No, I agree. And let's talk about this then. So we've spoken for a bit now about the starting lineup. What I'm a little more interested in is you're speaking now on the bench mob. But my opinion on this season is that it's not ideal to have a 5-man in, 5-man out rotation because it limits you during the playoff time. Because the best playoff team plays an 8-man rotation, right? And that's not to say that we need to play 8-man rotation throughout the whole season, but I think that the trap that the Raptors got themselves in this last season was that they were a fantastic regular season team because they could dominate teams like Orlando with the depth that they had, but then when it came time to really lock down and play long minutes for a core group of players that are the most productive, then they weren't prepared for that because they didn't practice it throughout the season. So would you rather see the same style again, where we have all 10 players, even 11 players playing on the Raptors team, or would you rather tighten it up and just do sub 1-man in, 1-man out?
I agree with you in the sense that, we just weren't ready in the playoffs to cut our bench down to 8 players and, put out the most productive lineups. We weren't ready for that because every single game last season, we had the same rotations. We had the starting 5 go in and, slowly the bench mob to where it was a 10-player lineup, and then the starters would slowly come back in. So 10 guys would play every night, and it was, depending on injuries, it was always the same times people would go in, and nothing would change. So during the regular season, I'd like to see, I don't care if we play 10 people, But as long as people are getting used to play with different players, we can see which lineups are the best. And then, because if you play 10 players and you just keep them playing with the same people, then in the playoffs you throw CJ Miles in with the starting lineup and you've never seen that before, then it's an issue. But if you do different rotations during the regular season when it doesn't matter that much, then you try it in the playoffs, people have experience with that. So I don't really care if we play 10 guys every night, just as long as it's not the same thing every night.
I agree to an extent, but I'll do my hot take here now. I think that we should do away with the bench mob. I don't even think that that should be a thing. I don't think that we should ever have more than 3 men switch out at one time. No, I'm serious. I don't think that we should ever have more than 3 men rotate out at one time, because I think that we're then creating, like I said, 2 separate units. And I think that what we need to focus in on is just having role players come in. So really now, if we went with your ideal starting lineup, now we have Fred, who's a 3 guy, CJ, who's a 3 guy, Danny, who's a 3 guy, Ibaka, who thinks that he's a 3 guy, and then DeLon is the only piece that's not really a 3-point shooter in the bench unit. We're stacking up with pieces that would come in and make shots. So I think instead of making that an entire lineup where you're forcing them to all become creators, or Fred to become creative, even though he's good at it, I think what would be more ideal to have is you just sub 1-2 guys in when you're lacking to make shots, and you keep the same style consistent. Because what happened last season with the Raptors is the bench unit had a completely different offensive scheme than the starting lineup. And your solution to just rotate the units is fine, but I think it would be even more ideal to have an offensive set for just the 5 players that are on the floor, and not the 5 players that you're using. It's not so it's not like Fred's lineup has one scheme of basketball, and then Kyle's lineup has one scheme. It's the scheme. It's the players that are on the floor. They're running a specific offensive set, or a set of sets, and then whoever's going in, they're picking up where the other person left off.
Yeah, we both agree on the same issue with the problem with the bench mob going into the playoffs. We both agree that we just had, players that couldn't play together in the most productive lineups. But I personally just think we have too much talent to not play everybody. But we can't just get reliant on playing 2 different offenses between the bench and starters. And we're running a bit long here, but the one thing that I also wanted to bring up was the Raptors' small ball death lineup. Because that's what every championship contender team has. And I just wanted to throw out the lineup of Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, I'm getting sad now. Kyle Lowry, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, OG Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam. You could slot them into whatever positions you prefer, but that is a small ball, 3-point shooting, run the floor. Oh, that excites me. That sort of death lineup excites me.
Yeah. No, and you're right. And you're like, this is the Draymond Green at the center kind of lineup. Mm-hmm. But the reason that it works is not only that you're achieving what you want to from the offensive side, is that all those players are good, lengthy, committed defensive players, right? Danny
ridiculous defenders.
Sorry?
Ridiculous defenders, amazing defenders.
Exactly. So we're not sacrificing anything by going small. I mean, obviously height. So if there's like a DeMarcus Cousins out there, then obviously we would get bullied.
Yeah,
he would take over Siakam. But in a lineup that works, we're not sacrificing defense. So I think that would be a fantastic lineup, and we'll probably see it. I think that's more likely than the starting lineup that you pitched. Not to say that we won't, but I would think we would see this one before we'd see the first one.
Yeah, that's 100% fair. And Danny Green is a second team all defensive. Kyle Lowry leads the league in charges and stuff. Kawhi Leonard, 2-time defensive player of the year. OG and Siakam, we've seen them be productive defenders. So that lineup excites me. Let us know what you guys think. What lineups do you want to see starting in the bench mob? What death lineup do you want to see us close games with? Let us know in the comments below. You're the best for listening this far. Check out the Instagram, the Twitter, and all that cool stuff. And thanks for listening.
Cheers.